Carol's ready to get started, so
Yes, sir.
we're gonna call this meeting to order.
Thank you.
Please join me in the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Christie, looking around the room, I can see everyone's here, so you don't need to call up. Document it, please.
Well,
Thank you. Any amendments to the agenda, chief?
No.
Words and presentations?
No, sir.
Okay, we're gonna open it up to public comment at this point, and I see we've got some public out there. We got the Larry and Gary Act from FRAC, and Gary's here all the time, but I'm not sure everybody knows Larry. I've known Larry since he was a minnow, so Larry, stand up, tell us about yourself.
Been a few days, hasn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah, going back about when? Wait,
well, just the last few
a
years.
few days.
Yeah.
All right.
Larry's on FRAC, in case you didn't catch that. The gray shirts, as we learned today, so wearing gray shirts are part of FRAC. And we have a firefighter with us. Always appreciate what you guys do. Thanks for being here. Hearing no public comment, they'll take us to our consent. Is there anything anybody'd like to pull from that?
Sure.
Hearing none, I'll take a motion to accept it.
So moved.
second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Okay, that takes us to a update regarding the 2025 City of Loveland budget. Chief, over to you.
Mr. Chairman, that's carryover. We were putting that on there as a carryover from month to month. So I think item number 3 will actually incorporate that as well.
Okay, moving on to number 3 then. It's to conduct a public hearing and consider a motion to adopt resolution R-168, adopting LFRA 2025 budget and 2025 consolidated fee schedule for Loveland LFRA, state of Colorado, calendar year beginning first day January 2025 and ending on the last day of December 2025. So I'd like to have a motion that we open the public hearing. For a second?
Second.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We're now in a public hearing, and Emily's not here to read what she normally reads, correct?
No, it's all right, President Swanee, I'm here on the line, and I will certify for the record that notice of today's public hearing was duly published as required by law. And the authority received no public comment prior to today's public hearing.
Oh, great. Welcome, Emily. I didn't know you were up there. I thought we were gonna see you in person, but that's great.
Yeah,
Thank
no,
you.
with the revised time, I unfortunately wasn't able to make it in person, but I am here.
Great. I will turn it over to you, Chief.
Okay. So there's really not much new to share here. We'll go through this as kind of a synopsis and then we'll reflect the proposed cuts incorporating the city as well as the reduced contribution from the rural side. So I'll do this somewhat jointly with Amy, so she'll clarify any points that I misstepped on. This is kind of the revised budget process calendar. Obviously, this is a little difficult or different process than we've used in the past. Obviously, with the city's workshops and so forth, the schedule has changed quite a few times. So the program budget conferences, this is an internal process that myself, the program managers, Amy and Cheryl, have worked through during April. We participated in the City of Loveland budget workshop, which occurred last week. And now we are at the point of adopting the LFRA budget with the fee schedule. And then we do have representation from FRAC. So we have our citizen advisory group with us. So Gary and I appreciate you guys being here. So the next process beyond that would be the approval of the city budget to include the LFRA contribution with the fee schedule. That'll be the first reading. That'll happen in October. And then the approval from the local rural process as far as their contribution and the fee schedule, again in October. And then the final approval of the city budget, including the LFRA contribution and fee schedule, second readings being in October. So going through this, just as a general reminder, LFRA obligations, outstanding obligations, to include the $10 million loan, combination loan for stations 10 and 7, combined with an annual payment of $700,163, excuse me. And we also have the long-term SCBA lease. That is a 7-year lease for our SCBAs. Those are basically the protective equipment that we wear on our backs. We did a 7-year lease process. Basically, it falls in line with the updates of the new standards. So every 7 years, we would just renew that lease. Obviously, moving forward, it wouldn't be a continual $189,000, but for the duration of this lease, it would be $189,000 contribution for the year. Unfunded needs, just general reminder, increases in fixed costs, like anything else, inflation and so forth. The additional staffing, I think it's critical that I reference the agreement that is currently in place, the 3-year agreement with the rural district to fund those additional positions outside of the 80-20 contribution. At the same time, outstanding needs is the relocation of Station 3. While we are working jointly with city facilities to make the modifications to sustain that facility for a longer period of time, it still needs to remain on the radar as an unfunded need moving forward. And then essential programs. We are making a number of financial cuts to essential programs in all areas that are unfunded, given the $750,000 cut. Training center improvements, I bring this to your attention as well. We have 2 projects that are underway, one of which is partially funded through a federal grant or a federal appropriation through Congressman Neguse. That's the Health and Wellness Center, which we will be going out to bid here within the next 30 days or so. Am I correct on that, Chief Ward? In conjunction with that is the burn prop / smoke training prop / drafting pit. That item is funded through a contribution of $2.2 million from the rural district. Again, that project will be starting here in the next 30 days through the bid process as well. Then the larger scale process, this is what we talked about last year as we were pursuing both the fire safety tax and the mill levy increase, was the full build out of the training center, which would leave an outstanding balance of approximately $18 million for that improvement. Budget reductions are unsustainable. I echo what all the other all department heads have shared. We basically led with the cuts, the vehicle replacement plan. That was the easiest for us to put forth. But I will remind you what we put forth was a 50% lengthening of that apparatus replacement program. What that does is we are currently in compliance with the National Fire Protection Standards, which puts it at a 20-year replacement plan. We would extend that by 10 years in its current state, which would mean an apparatus bought today would be removed from service 30 years from now, which obviously is not a sustainable plan.
Chief, is there a similar process with other departments because of the cost of equipment? I mean, are they moving rather than they're moving in their plans out as well?
Yeah, and I'll speak for solid waste. I know does it. Public Works is doing it. And the issue with us, while we could extend the plan, we have followed the National Fire Protection, which is basically your best practices. The problem with our equipment is the technology that is incorporated into it.
Right.
So once you get outside of that scope, it's very difficult to maintain the technology. And while I won't always lean on safety, but obviously operational efficiency and safety are 2 components that fall directly in line with it.
I'm sorry, sir. I was referring to other fire departments around the country. Are they moving the replacement plans out too? Not necessarily, I'm not talking about the city. I'm talking about other departments just due to the cost of equipment. They've got to be thinking the same thing.
Yeah, it's actually a great question because what we do is we do this on a common basis. We did it this week. In fact, Amy and I worked on this. The state chiefs would, based on legislation changes, they would fire that question out. If today you had to sustain a 5% cut on your budget, Okay, so what they're talking about is capping of property tax at 5% growth with no cap on the reverse end of that. Some of those scenarios were put forth, and some of the chiefs did literally respond. But what was interesting, by contrast, the most that I had seen was a 3-year extension of that apparatus replacement plan. So while they are in compliance with the National Fire Protection Association plan today, their plan would be to extend it by 3 years as opposed to what we put forth instead.
Is that National Association looking at moving their goalposts too?
No, in fact, because technology is moving so fast and the provisions of environmental issues and the changing environmental standards, it's actually moving in the opposite direction.
Thank you.
Radio communication technology was another item. We have aggressively tried to maintain our communications being one of the most critical tools of our protective ensemble. So what we have done is explored other options. Motorola, quite frankly, has a monopoly in the communication market. They are the big provider in the emergency services. So we have explored that. Chief Ward is actually implementing a pilot program with a limited number of radios as opposed to a full-fledged change out. So we're exploring options, but I can tell you that it's one thing that I certainly don't want to dip my toes too deep into the water and get us in a bad position because of the vulnerability of that. Training reductions. I have shared every year that I've been here, if you want to hide money from me, hide it in training because I don't want to cut training costs. The issue with training reductions is very simple. You get one opportunity to invest in someone's education and development. Every day that passes is a day lost. You cannot regain the calendar time. So while we have put forth reductions in this, we've backed our training division budget up to the 2023 numbers. And then you will see more reductions, and those are specific to programs. So for example, protective clothing. If we have a line item in there on protective clothing, that program, we have reduced that training budget as well. So we pinched that in every direction that we felt was possible. In line with that is the warehouse reductions, which is all the supplies that we use across the organization to include safety equipment. So any questions on that? And we'll revisit this in a couple more slides here.
Sorry, I do have one real quick. What is the duration of the 10-year note on station 10? Or I'm not 10-year note. What is
About
the-
10 years.
No, seriously, what is it? Is it 20 years?
Wasn't it 2021, Chief?
2021.
It's when the chief got here, it was
Well, that's when we
21.
built it, yes.
Yeah.
That was the
Probably about
start of it.
7.
So
But you're
there's 7
saying,
years remaining on it?
No, that's a 7-year lease on the SCBA's. It is not a 7-year note
On
on
the
the
station.
15 years for those stations.
15 years, sounds about right.
So we're 3 years down the
3
road.
years.
New check just to confirm that. It's a 7-year lease on the SCBA.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Were you looking at LFRA obligations at the top?
Yeah, I was looking at
Yeah,
$10
it looks like
million.
it's on the building.
Well, I'm sorry.
It looks like it's on the building. I thought it's the same thing.
You are right. You're right. The top one is.
Yeah.
That's for Station 10. Okay, but the bottom one there is for the SCBA's, and we're in our 3rd year of a 7-year lease for SCBA's.
Thank
And
you.
we just added that, that previously had been a decision package, and because it's really not something that we can waver on, we added it into what we're calling the base budget.
Thanks.
Could I ask a question?
Sure.
That lease, that SCBA lease, is that typical people lease versus own? That's
To do a replacement, most would go down the path of purchase, but because it is not an item, you have to have consistency from station to station. You don't want a firefighter wearing, let's just say, a 2014 SCBA and then go into another station, and he's wearing a 2020 SCBA. So to comply with the latest standard and to create consistency across the organization, we replace them all at the same time.
That kind of forces every agency to do that as well, right?
It is by far the best practice, bless you. It is the best practice for sure, for consistency's sake.
And chief, they are a lease purchase, the SCBA's.
So at the end of the 7 years, we would own them
Yeah.
versus.
And then the plan is to trade them right back in and start over, so we remain in that cycle of
Yeah, so a great point. So what happens is every 4 years, the standard changes. So we would forego one standard change. The second standard change would be at that 8-year mark. So ours would be coming due for replacement. We'd be right in line with that. So that was the objective, is you're not going to catch every single update of the standard. So sitting out one evolution, picking up the second one. Okay, thank you.
Chief, at least assuming that, insurance on our vehicles and engines is similar to personal insurance, as the vehicle gets older, they usually charge you less to insure it. Might be a way to recover a little bit of savings to put into some other areas.
Are you talking
To
about?
stay on top of it, to make sure they're reducing your premiums based on the vehicle being a year old.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
Good point. I just wouldn't want to insure a 30-year-old piece.
Well, yeah, but I know
Unless it's in a
personally, the
museum.
car's insurance goes down, as it ages, so.
Clarifying point there, are we self-insured or do we have policy elsewhere?
We're insured through CSD, Colorado Special Districts Property and Liability Pool.
Okay,
It's a pool with a lot of other districts, and
Okay.
it keeps our premium down significantly.
great, thank you.
Okay, I'll come back to this multiple times. I'll break it down a little bit. But I guess what we're trying to show with this slide is, first and foremost, is the is the 2023 personnel services actual budget, the adopted budget of 2024, the revised budget reflecting from a personnel services perspective is the additional positions fully funded by the Loveland Rural Fire Protection District. So our total request for 2025 when it comes to personal services was at $20,908,152. And I'll break down percentage differences. And then what you see in the second to last column from the right is the cuts that were imposed, 27,600 in supplies, 668,596 in purchase services, and then the 300,000 in capital outlay for a total financial cut of just over $1 million. So that is combined, obviously, the city's reductions as well as the rural contributions. And I'll come back to any of these that you need to. I'm just going to try to do an overview and then come back. The item to point out here, there are a couple things that are modified in 2025, the most notable of which is something that we're pretty proud of, and Chief Dan is in the back here. This is a direct reflection of CSD's work when it comes to inspections and permitting. This is a reflection of the additional income that we are projecting for the WUI inspection process. So you see a pretty substantial jump. A large portion of that would be directly related to those WUI inspections. A couple of other changes that you'll see is special events. This was actually originally entered by Fraser. So while it is less, I don't directly have an explanation for you. Just bear in mind, these are projections and they'll fluctuate. It doesn't really affect the budget, but it would affect the contribution if it was greater or less ultimately. But it's just a projection to begin with. Everything else falls in line with the previous years.
Chief, question, and I'm glad Chief Dan's here. So on the inspections and the permitting process, maybe you're gonna get to this, stop me if you are. But in looking at the packet, it said the only person that can waive inspection fees is the chief. Correct? Am I correct?
Only to a $500 value, then I would come back to you for a greater.
Here's my point. So no matter what deals are cut with the city, and I'm not trying to bang on anybody on this, but let's say somebody comes in, your fees are your fees. Those cannot be waived, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and it's a great question obviously with the question that's continuously going about in the city. If fee waivers were requested for a development, it would come to me, and ultimately, if it was in excess of $500, it would come back to the board.
Okay.
For that.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Chief Dan? You had a look on your face, like, is that?
No.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
That is correct, and
Oh.
like. There's a large business that's talking about coming to the city right now, and I believe they had negotiated some fee waivers with the city. But they would have to come to us directly,
Okay,
so we're not automatically lumped.
gotcha. Thanks, Chief.
So this is just a side-by-side comparison of where we are. Original proposed budget, city contribution just over 19 million, partner contribution is combined from the rural district at 4.9 with an added 2.1 for the additional positions. And then other income through the LFRA fees collected 1.1. So the original proposed budget being 27,873,000. So the reduction of 937.5 for a revised budget of 26,935,785. And I'll get to this. So here are basically the cuts that have been put forth, the increased lifespan of apparatus. So that is the annual contribution of 500,000. That makes up 49.9% of the cuts. Reduced radio purchases. I know that looks like an exorbitant number. You can look at the radio that Chief Smith here has is approaching $10,000. So that's how it goes very quickly. And imagine that every firefighter is carrying one of those radios, and then we have a wide assortment supporting the apparatus in their deployment. Reduced training division budget to 2023 levels, which is a $125,000 reduction. Our warehouse contribution is reduced by 100,000, reduced training program budgets by an additional 13,596, and then discontinued the honor guard at 7,600 for a total reduction, both parties combined for 1,002,196.
So the honor guard discontinuing was obviously, that was the thing that hit me the most when looking at that. So Chief, I mean, I understand they're big numbers, but that's an important part of our culture.
Yeah, and I mean, it's $7,600. Can I find a means? Yeah, I think we can. And if you look at this, the overall contribution, the agreed upon contribution or reduction was at $750,000 to the city. Then if you basically take a matching 20% of that, it doesn't equal 1,002,196. We actually have reduced more than was originally asked by $62,500. So my immediate thing would be to reinstitute things such as the honor guard and contributions to training to make that a true whole of $750 reduction, as well as the 187 reduction on the rural side. Gotcha. So here's a breakdown by the numbers with some very specific highlights. Our original budget at 2025 being for personnel services, the city contribution to that, or overall contribution would be 20,908,000. From the adopted budget of 2024, that would have been 11.7% increase, which is a substantial increase. When you back that off and you look at the contributions that have been offered by the rural, it reduces that change from the 2024 revised budget to a 4.4% ask. Moving to the right, the percentage of change from the adopted 2024 budget would have been 7.7%. Our change as it stands today with the cuts imposed is a 0.7% financial change from previously. Any questions on that?
Chief, are you going to be going into some of the other aspects of the budget as in your presentation?
As far as direct line items and things of that,
Yeah.
We'll show you those by programs, but to be honest with you, Director, it's at a 0.7%, there is no change.
I had a question about something. I'll hold it if you're going to go into other stuff.
Yep, happy to go there if we don't address it, but we're not like telling you specifics of purchases, because at 0.7, there's nothing. Got it. So this is just kind of echoing the previous. The reflection here is our greatest degree of reductions is in risk reduction and readiness. Keep in mind that that's Chief Ward's area versus the response area. But this is all the support services that basically create our readiness. That's our training. That's our supplies and equipment through our logistics, and then the aspects of CSD as well. So I think maybe this is what you were gonna be referring to, so this would, give you the specific, reductions in
it
those
is.
areas.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm not gonna go through this, but I'm happy to answer any questions, and I think this will give you the numbers that you're looking for.
Yeah, I was looking at line item, I'm not sure if it's line item, but item 1670, the HR recruiting, and I saw this in the package.
Yeah.
What are we spending $500,000 on HR recruiting for? I just don't understand that part.
So that's HR slash.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay, sorry, I thought we were, thanks, I should have asked you, but, okay, I didn't know that that was that.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, it's a combined, contribution.
Software, everything else you need to do what you gotta do. Okay, got it, sorry. Thank you for clarifying that. We had a bunch of headhunters out there.
We do, but not at that price.
Good, okay, thanks for clarifying.
Yeah,
Chief.
yeah. Any other? I think we got a question. So, Lieutenant Willard, how does the 2025 budget reflect employee benefits changes, insurance premiums, and compensation? Andrea, you able to address that?
Is that considered in there yet? That increases the benefits were estimated at 13%, right, increase.
Yeah, our benefits are going up, on average 13.5% this year total. So Amy and I are working on how that's going to be split between LFRA and the employees.
So Craig, I don't know if you heard that benefits are going up by approximately 13%. So the process that we're working through right now is employee versus employer contribution, how that will be directly split. Okay. Any other questions?
Sir.
He has another question?
Craig does? All right, stand by, Craig. Gotcha. So he's saying it's just health insurance.
Yes, that's the health insurance.
Yes, that's correct. Intermediary here. Anybody else?
I do have a question.
Yeah.
Hold on, is pay effective? This is a follow-up, I'm sorry. Follow-up question. I think the question is, are there reductions in the increases?
There is.
Reductions in compensation?
That's how I would take the question.
No, there are no reductions in the for compensation in the 2025 budget. And the objective would be to hold full, to basically use the terminology that's put forth, that cutbacks would not be on the backs of employees. So that's the objective moving forward.
One more. Thank you.
You guys good?
Yes.
Okay. Having no military background, this quartermaster line, it's a big dollar amount. So what exactly is that?
That is all the equipment that we have. So
All the.
yes, so the quartermaster or logistics as we term it, quartermaster being the person that oversees that, is in charge of inventorying all equipment, within the organization.
Chief,
So-
the quartermasters, the uniforms and bunker gear. All the protective equipment,
Okay.
uniforms, come out of the quartermaster, which is, the quartermaster program and the warehouse program run together. One side's equipment, one side is apparel of.
That's why it's so big.
Yeah, exactly.
Expensive stuff.
Is there a question from Larry or somebody back there, David? No?
What was that, Jim?
Do you have a question?
Yeah, gray shirts fall within that.
Okay, if there's no other further questions, need a motion to go out of executive session.
Executive session, public.
Public, I'm sorry, thank you.
We had the 60% the other night. You got me worried.
Did you?
Yeah, I'm sorry. So, Mr. Chairman, we got the fee schedule, so I'll go through that very briefly. And as I said, Chief Dan is here. So what you'll note are the changes are, there is a wording change, permit submittals withdrawn after the LFRA review. This was previously stated as incomplete plan review fee. So it's just a minor wording change. Written request requirement is clarified within the change that's accompanying your packet. Project-specific fire code research is increased just in general from $30 to $50 an hour, kind of keeping up with the times. Fire operational permit fees, plan review and inspection fees increased from $250 to $300. Exceptions are for fireworks sales increased from $1,500 to $2,000. Food vendor fee did not increase. Fire special permit fees for personnel changed from a mixed amount to the current first cost of personnel. So it is the personnel who are working on that permit, we charge that set fee. And then Mr. Chairman, to your point, the clarification error to yours added that the fire chief can waive up to $500. All other requests would be presented to the board for approval.
Am I correct? The fees are.
That is correct.
Okay.
Back to you.
More public comment?
Oh, sir.
Okay, without any further comments from the public, I need a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we are back in regular session now. It's being recommended that we approve as asked for. So I'll open it up for any further comments from the board, questions, etc. Okay, hearing none.
Mr.
I need
Chairman.
it. Yes.
I guess if I could, I'd be curious from the city manager or the mayor's perspective, if the 1% that is currently on the table for a second reading on Tuesday, if that was to go through on November, how would that affect our budget request? So if it was successful in November, how would we go about kind of going back to our budget to go back to whole?
Let me put that hat on. So what we would do is if it was successful, we would amend our budget. And we would put, with the premise that we would put back all of those pieces within the budget that we've taken out, put them all back in, if you will, because our revenue stream wouldn't be there. So that's the reset, if you will. The path we're on, as you said before, we're going to, with our normal cadence for the city, first and second reading in October for our budgets. And will be the reduced services budget that we've been talking about. If for some reason that changes, we can come back to city council, restore those pieces that we've talked about reducing, if you will. So that's kind of the plan. And it would, it would happen probably within, the next, 60 days or something like that, where we can put it back in place.
Okay, further comments? Okay, you're asking us to, you're recommending approval of the resolution as written, so we need a motion to that effect.
You haven't moved anything.
So moved.
Second.
She's further discussion. I'm telling you right there. Thanks, John.
Sleep on the job.
I was working here.
So moved here.
Okay.
Further discussion, Mr. Chairman.
Let me just say, and I've talked with the organization from the city standpoint, but I want to say it here too. I wish we weren't here. I wish we weren't in this spot. I'm encouraged that the city is on a path to put a 1% question back on the ballot for non-food items, which then would kind of put us back on course, if you will, and these deep cuts and reduced in services that we're talking about won't have to be implemented. So I wish we weren't here, but here we are, and there is a path forward that is being worked on by city council, and that the citizens will be able to vote on in November.
Further comments?
That's my questions. I'll do.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, Chief, I believe this is you again. Presentation and consider approval of proposed fire district name.
Okay, so I apologize for the double 4-4. There's a bit of a stutter on the agenda. So what this reflects is this is kind of the formation of the Unification Steering Committee. Please understand this is just simply a formality to keep us on course with whatever direction we put forth. If you recall, we divvied out the duties. We had talked about a legal side, a financial side, and then stuff. So the stuff formation, that subcommittee really hasn't been formulated. That would be if we were to transition to a district, how would we handle all of our stuff? The transition of apparatus, the transition of stations, would it be a lease program, so on and so forth. The other item that was outstanding was we would have to formulate under a new name. So what we asked the group was very simply, can we leave this in the hands of the membership who would be wearing the patch, the badges, and representing this each and every day versus creating some other less creative methodology. So we did that. And what I did is I basically put it out to the organization, left Chief Ward in charge of that to kind of be the funnel of information. So he went through a process with very specific parameters that I had put forth. So he'll go through that and give you the net results of what we came up with. So process and results, I think we accomplished that. Yep. So here are the general requirements that were put forth. Go ahead.
So the end of the name has to end in fire protection district legally. So that was the first one. The legal name may not need to be on our patch. It may be a shortened name that could actually be on our patch or on the side of the truck or whatever. The letterhead would probably have the legal name. The documents, the IGAs and stuff would have the legal name. The name should be broad enough to encompass any further mergers. So look down the road, basically was the ask for our troops. We're loyal to the Loveland name, but that only represents one portion of our district as it sits today, and then who knows what the future would look like. So we want to pay reference to Loveland, but maybe that's through the design of the patch versus the name of the organization, patch logo, same kind of thing. And it can't be the name of an existing fire district in the state. So we sent a survey out to all the members, asked them for name suggestions, and Christy ran that survey monkey for that. And we got 37 unique names. We had more than that submitted. Some of them were duplicates. So 37 unique ones. And one of the things we asked them to do is not only send us the name, but send us a few sentences about what's the significance of that name that you're proposing. The executive staff took that list and we removed 13 names from the list. And mainly they didn't meet the general requirements that we had up above. We had several that were Loveland. We had some that were district names that are already in Colorado. There was one that was like Mountain Valley or something, which was really close to Mountain View. You know, that's a close neighbor to us. So some of those we took out. There were some that we had some potential copyright or trademark issues that we tried to avoid. In the end, we sent the 24 names that were still on the list out for the group to select the top 2. we came back and did another survey with the top two on that to get us to the point of our final. So our top two, they're very similar. In fact, the official legal name of the fire district was actually the same. Northern Colorado Fire Protection District. The difference was the shortened name of the district. Norco or NoCo. That's where we ended up. And in the end, you can't see it. It's hidden. It's part of the reveal process, right?
And the winner is.
NoCo.
Okay.
So out of that, we had 88 members of the organization that went out. Admin, CSD, operations, the volunteers, everybody in the organization to vote. We had 88, which is really good showing of our folks. And Northern Colorado Fire Protection District, NoCo, came out on top. It's interesting, I think, as we were traveling around the stations prior to this process, I would say that's the name we kept hearing from our troops was NoCo Fire, NoCo Fire. We heard that a lot just in conversations.
So what was the most unique name you tossed out?
That we tossed out?
That we can talk about, Chief. Don't worry.
How about Citizens Choice Fire Protection District?
That's easy.
We just thought that may not really represent the district because do they really have a choice? We understand the significance of what the person that submitted it was saying with it, but we didn't know if that was a great representation. So that was probably the most unique one.
What was second?
Second, that I'll tell you one that we didn't toss out that I thought was kind of unique and it was tied back to Loveland was Heartland Fire Protection District.
That is a good one. Problem is Kansas, or no, not Kansas, Oklahoma City goes by Heartland as well.
But they're not in the state, so.
Yeah, heck was.
So it made the list.
No, that's great.
It was one of the ones on the list for the troops to vote on.
There's no Bukowski Fire Protection District.
There is. On my driveway, I have a garden hose
There we go.
until you guys show us.
Yeah, there you go. Okay.
Open it up for discussion.
So with that, that just looms kind of in a holding pattern. We can check that one box if we go down that appropriate path.
On your agenda, you're asking for approval. Are you not asking for approval then?
I guess I would toss that to Emily. Is this something we should seek approval at this time or come back to?
I don't think it's something that we need an official motion. I think we'd like to know if anybody strongly objects. But if not, as we continue the conversations with the city and if we continue development of the pre-inclusion IGA, this would be incorporated as part of the pre-inclusion IGA that gets approved later.
Okay, so we'll put it on hold, but any strong objections or?
Trust the troops. I like the name.
Okay, excellent. We'll go ahead then to, I'm gonna call it 4A, so we don't have to amend the agenda. Review briefing papers and correspondence, Chief.
I'm trying to get there. See it all, can't share. See, can you help me out here? Hang on a second.
Chief Ward, while you're looking, I got a quick question for you.
Yeah.
What's the approximate cost of rebranding vehicles, patches? Just out of curiosity, what does it cost?
I think you can ask LPD for cost of that.
The last time we did the apparatus was around $500 per rig.
That's just for the apparatus.
Just for the apparatus. The uniforms, these would be fairly cheap because it's a patch that goes on and off. The t-shirts and that kind of thing, if we do it like we did last time, is for a while you see a variety, and as some of those things wear out, then you change those out. So apparatus, this one would probably require signs, changes on the firehouses and stuff that we didn't do the last round. And so there'd be some expenses.
To that point, one of the things we did discuss was if you maintain the consistent theme that's there now, and it's just the patch or just that singular decal and lettering, substantial savings.
Just curious, that can be overlooked by so many companies, right?
Yep.
Big companies, not such a big company. Thank you.
It is the brand.
It is.
And when we did that last time, some of the reserve engines, we didn't swap them out because we knew that within the next 2.5 to 3 years, they were gonna go away. And
Okay, so as usual, I'll go through this as fast as you would like. We oftentimes talk about recruitment and retention. We're very proud of our recruitment efforts as well as our retention efforts, but we had a string that occurred. Actually, one of these occurred just last week, or the 15th. So what is that? Today is the 19th, so it would have been last Thursday. Jeremy Bell served with us for 15 years. I think 2 of those were volunteer. The rest of it was career. He has decided to continue with his family business, so he's actually running a food truck. So he had his first, not his first venture, but our first interaction with him at a fundraising event for the local this past weekend. So doing donuts, which is interesting because in talking to him and his wife, they're trying to teach their children a family business, and this was an objective for them that they could jump into was the food truck. So we wish Jeremy all the best. Definitely some great contributions to the organization when it comes to health, safety of our members. So we appreciate his 15 years of service. Equally such, Kate and Chris, 5 years of service, while shorter in time frame. The nice thing is we can take pride. He's going to continue his fire service career in Wyoming. So he lives in Laramie. He's going to continue with Laramie County as a training chief as opposed to engineer. So I think we set him up well, and he'll continue his fire service career in Wyoming. So hate to lose them, but we appreciate both of them and their contribution. This is just kind of interesting, as I shared with the rural board. Yep, I'm sorry.
Wanted to ask about the wildland person we just lost. Is that correct?
Yes. So it's not yet. August 22nd is Tyler's last day. So Tyler Nathy, our wildfire program coordinator, unfortunately, just a little over 2 months, I think, is about the level of service. Keep this in mind. He came to us from the county. The county had a position come open, and he is going to go that route. So I don't know the full story. I haven't had a chance to talk to him. While it stings a little bit, I also recognize career ambitions. It is not that he is upset with the organization. It's a career opportunity for him that he's taken advantage of. So we have a plan underway to fill that position using internal personnel.
How are our overtime hours doing? I know a year or so ago, we're pretty deep in overtime. How are we doing? I was hired up more, so less overtime.
Not entirely, but we have made a substantial push to basically reduce overtime. You know, I think I shared with the board previously that we reduced it primarily from the training perspective through a swap process. So they would have to basically get a swap with somebody or trade with somebody to backfill when they were off for training. Honestly, I mean, it has created a strain. And our plan, utilizing the rover positions, is to lift that. But we also understand those rover positions have a expiration point on them. So we wanted to make sure that we didn't jump in with both feet without having some sort of relief plan moving forward. So we have reduced it substantially. At one point, it was over at 1.2 million. I think we were budgeted in the 465, 500 range. So it was substantially over. So we've reduced it down to a more manageable number. But the realism is it's back on the backs of our personnel.
Yeah, stress.
And that's a great question. I want to piggyback on it, make sure I don't say something inaccurate. At the same time, I want to clarify. Seems that like at one time, and I don't know how far back I'm going, we were told by hiring people, we wouldn't need as much overtime, there'd actually be a savings in hiring people, and at some point, maybe at the city, we were shut down from hiring people, and I don't understand that, if we can save money by hiring somebody, we're saving money on the overtime, are we there still, or where are we?
No, that's the objective, and I'll let Tim jump in here in a second, but just imagine you have 4 seats to fill. This is the unique nature. When we ask for one position, we come to both the rural board as well as the city council for 3. So one position, 1 seat filled takes 3 because we have 3 shifts. Now, if we have 4 seats that we have to fill, you're gonna need at least 12 people, but that means they can't take a day off. And that's the issue, is in order to get people the day off, whether it's sick leave, vacation, any leave that they've earned, training, you have to basically go above and beyond the minimum. So for example, and this is the example I've used multiple times, we open up Station 10. Okay, when we opened up Station 10, we opened it with a squad, which is 6 people. We hired 6 people. We didn't hire any additional people to let them off. So that puts us at a deficit. So that's not the whole story. It's much bigger than that, but just as a general synopsis. So what we are trying to do with the positions that the rural district has afforded us is those rover positions. So rovers fill in any voids at that specific rank, whether it's a firefighter rank, an engineer rover would fill an engineer who is off sick or vacation and so forth. So that's the objective we're trying to do. So we're still working down that path. We just got, well, today, am I correct? Today was part of a promotional process to fill lieutenant rover positions, and we'll continue down that path with engineers, captains, and so forth.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this? Paul?
I'm good.
Brian? No.
Okay.
Question for chief on that. You know, you're losing the lieutenant, you're losing some people that have got 15 years, 5 years. You've got some people that have been on the staff for a long time. How is that process gonna work to fulfill their obligation, chief? You know, that's a big dent in the fire stations, so just inquisitive on that.
Yeah, it's a great point. So 15 years, you don't fill that, right? You got to start over. So what we call bench strength, how much bench strength do we have to backfill that position? So at the lieutenant, we are to a point, we did this, we just put our foot in the water for the first time at that level to open it up to the outside. So we said, here's our minimum standard for a lieutenant. We don't have enough bench strength, meaning qualified applicants at the engineer level to promote upward. We opened it up to the outside. Well, we had one candidate who eventually dropped out, had more than one submit, but qualified candidate, he dropped out of that process. So we are running at a deficit for that rank, and we're gonna have to basically re-gear the system. Now, what I've told the troops is we re-gear the system not by lowering the standard, maintain the standard, okay, backfill, and we'll have to do it through an overtime process until we get people up to those qualifications. Does that make sense?
Just to follow up on that, you know, you had mentioned that a day lost of training is a day that you're not gonna regain.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, these people that have to be trained to do that, I mean, it's gotta be difficult on your part to escalate that up to where those can be filled on a timely basis, I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is the business that we're in, we can only train people so fast and they can only gain experience so fast. Our firefighters go to every call we invite them to go to. But with that, you know, that exposure is kind of a check of the box that they are prepared and they've experienced it. And they have a card in the card file if they experience it as an officer moving forward. So it's difficult and we're doing everything we can. What we don't want to do is lessen the standard, put somebody in a compromising position that they're not capable of handling, and put everybody else at risk. So we maintain that standard, backfilled with overtime until we can get qualified candidates to that level.
Yeah, no, that speaks to it. We don't want to drop the standard. We don't want to put people at risk. So we ask this level to, you know, people get to that bar and
And I will say this, and I take great pride in this, in going out to the stations, and I know Zach was privy to the conversation. I asked the troops, I went out to the troops for the fire chief or the executive staff to say, we're gonna take this to the outside is huge. That is huge. That is met in many organizations with a great deal of resistance. To the compliment of the men and women of this organization, they accepted it because they recognize this is the standard, and to compromise that standard puts them at risk. So they openly accepted that, understanding that anybody coming from the outside would have an uphill challenge. But at the same time, internally, you had to climb that same mountain to get to an eligible status. But I think that's just a reflection of the men and women that we have, that they're willing to be open to that. So the cream rises to the top.
Thank you, Chief.
Okay, Chief, go ahead.
Okay, sorry.
No, great
This-
explanation.
This is just kind of explaining, Tyler is gonna be a loss. I can say in his short time here, and I sent this out with the organization, he did an outstanding job and will do an outstanding job through the duration, August 22nd. But this is just a reflection of some of the things we dedicated to the wildland side. And I will say this, and I say this not as a dagger or anything else. The Alexander fire, we were spot on in our prediction. But I want you to look at the work that was put forth, and not a single dollar contribution, not a single dollar was asked of the city in that contribution. Every bit of that is grant-based or alternative funding that we secured for the protection of the wildland community, which obviously the city of Loveland is part of that. But we're pretty proud of that, and the fact that the Alexander Mountain Fire occurred, while unfortunate, I think we took monumental steps in preparation for that incident.
Excuse me, do we have anybody to fill those shoes that now he's left?
We do. We've got a process underway. We opened it up. I think we talked about 12 candidates originally. We reduced it down, and we have an internal candidate who has expressed interest. And, the process is underway now. If it continues on, we'll be able to fill that with an internal candidate that we feel is fully qualified.
I would expect that.
Yeah.
Chief, I don't know if this is something that maybe January can do, or whoever would cover this area, but educating the public on this very thing. 'Cause I've heard several comments about, or questions, I should say, how does Loveland afford to pay for a fire like that? I mean, this is basic to us, but the public doesn't understand that. They think this is coming right out of their billfolds to pay for that fire.
Yeah.
I'll echo that. I got lots of questions on that.
Yeah, and
It's nice to turn around and say we didn't spend one penny.
Yeah.
we didn't spend one penny, but we put our resources up there that are reimbursed.
Plan
The
came
city
together.
put resources up there. Public Works was a contributor. LPD was a contributor. And finance today is working on that reimbursement process. And I think that's the disheartening process, is that we have had this discussion at great length with city council, as well as this board and the rural board, of when incidents escalate, there is a reimbursement process. And Chief Smith and the team that responded initially made that formal transition to the county, to the state, to the federal side, as expeditiously as they could. That's a natural process for that. It's built into the system that nobody bears full burden of this without the right pockets or of money being available. So this is not unusual for us. We've been down this track before, so.
And you're absolutely right, but we've got to find a way to keep reminding people of that, because this is all we do, is deal with fire, right? But using the city councilors as your example, look at everything they're dealing with. It's hard to remember where all this money's coming from, and certainly the public and people in the county. I mean, people in the county have the same question. How can we afford to pay for this? So I don't know if it's through the newspaper, public relations, media, Facebook.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a good starting list, and to take it further, to talk about the state and federal reimbursement program would serve us well, for sure.
If I might, Chief, to follow up on that. So you had mentioned 4 or 5 months ago, and I think everybody was with you on this one, that signs that say you're now leaving Loveland Fire Protection District right up in the mountains. Because there are people who are not paying for your services, right? Where has that gone? I know that's a tough one, but where has that gone?
No, it is a tough one, but I need this board, the rural board and city council to be prepared for that, because when we start doing that, and we did that, we've aggressively done that. If you leave our district, you see it. Where it is less obvious is, let me use Pinewood, for example, because as you go past the dam, that's the line of demarcation. So when you start offering non-emergent service, we will always cross that service line if somebody is in
I was
need.
referring specifically
Yeah,
to
but
that.
when it is non-emergency services, that's where we have to have that line of demarcation and make sure we're not extending ourselves. I'll tell you how much it's on my mind, and Chief Smith and Chief Ward think I'm crazy. I talk about the brand all the time. But if you look at the news briefings and things like that that were put forth during the Alexander fire, our brand was not present. Now, I'll never muscle up to the sheriff and say, hey, we should have had our brand present. But the reality is every press release, everything should have reflected the LFRA brand, because those are our customers, not one day out of the year, 365 days out of the year. Through the emergency, through the recovery process, and every day forward and backwards, they're our customers. And that's important. And the after action review will be one of the things that me and the sheriff discussed. Now, it's not on him. He was a fantastic partner in the process. But brand recognition is critical because Chief Smith made a conscious effort to make sure our folks were up there during the repopulation process and throughout this incident. We were the most forward group in the entire process, as we should have been. So.
Again, I was just curious if what the issue with the signage had, it moved down the road or
No,
cleared a few up.
it's, when that sign goes up, you're gonna get a call, you're gonna get.
That's fine.
And that's,
I'll take those.
we have to be able to navigate that, because it is gonna turn political very, very fast. I mean, I think we need to, especially in that area, it is a difficult area. There in Pinewood are most challenging.
Yeah, the message of that sign and that slide are key together, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, just had to
Yeah.
ask.
And I think this becomes a backdrop.
Exactly.
Is when we start mitigating, now we're affecting insurance, because we have people that are facing the fact that they will not be able to rebuild with insurance. So it will be 100% on their own. They try to get a loan, they're not gonna get it without insurance.
They can't sell their homes either. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
People can't sell their homes.
Yeah. So, and to that point, for us to make marketability on the west side of Loveland, anything west of Wilson, we are supporting the marketability of development as well as resale. So, again, these are in regards to the same project, in regards to the slash. And this is just, it was a festering project that we were successful. Chief Ward, or Chief Smith played a huge part in that with Tyler and his team. So kudos to them. This is, you know, we oftentimes wonder about elected officials. I know we have multiple in the room. Please don't take this the wrong way. But when elected officials show up and there are cameras and there's smoke in the air, it's one image. But I said this at the Rotary, and I'll say it again. This is a reflection of Congressman Neguse. He showed up 3 separate times. One time he spent 4 hours with me. There wasn't smoke in the air and there weren't cameras around. And I just think he made it personal. And this just demonstrates his efforts on our behalf, that when we were compromised, we were having to ship aircraft to a fire south of us, which was the absolute right thing to do. They had property at risk. We had trees at risk. But he was advocating for all resources available to be deployed to Colorado to support our efforts. So he worked with his fellow Congress members as well. So this is one of our retired employees, Sai Palima, and his wife. She is in charge of Hearts and Horses, just giving us thanks. They had evacuated the horses from Hearts and Horses successfully, and just giving us thanks for our efforts to protect their facility. I just put this in there. This is, I thought it was interesting. They actually quoted me during the brief thing that I did at the Rotary to encompass the comments. And what I said about Congressman Neguse. I was with Joe Neguse for almost 4 hours. ladies and gentlemen, there was no smoke in the air, no cameras. He came back 3 times. Joe Neguse made it personal. And I think it's important that we recognize that. So, oddly enough, this entire PowerPoint, with the exception of the thank yous, was done well before the Alexander Mountain Fire. If you recall, almost a month and a half now, this was the headlines. This was our interns, recognize our interns with one of our seasonals doing a equipment check. So this is, our focus was spot on, and we were in the headlines for a much different reason prior to the fire. And then also fire crews extinguishing a house fire. I don't want to lessen the importance of it, but by magnitude, it's a little different magnitude. So with that, let me catch up on this. We talked about our retirements. FRFC Recruit Academy, we do have 3 recruits starting the academy.
Next Tuesday, they started work today.
Started work with us, so that is their pre-academy. Then they'll go into the FRFC Academy for 15 weeks and then 2 weeks post-academy back with us. So we have 3 recruits, 2 females, 1 male. We'll have their family night tomorrow night, our opportunity to engage with them and their family tomorrow night. Promotional processes are underway. Those are to formalize the list. And then to fill vacancies at specific ranks. City budget retreat, we participated in that on August 15th. We talked about the budget reductions, and then the regional communication study is an ongoing conversation, not much to report there. We'll circle back at an appropriate time for this. I'll let Chief Ward or Chief Smith add anything on an update of the Alexander Mountain Fire. Chief Smith probably has a little bit of an update. In fact, we had smoke in the air yesterday, so.
Yeah, it's still technically being managed by the forest, but we stopped formally putting crews on it daily a week ago Saturday. But there's patrols ongoing. We'll do it with our module Monday through Friday, and then the Forest Service as well on their time. So we're present.
So if you heard anything yesterday, there was just something smoldering, did basically light up a tree. It's still within a protected area, monitored area, and we'll continue to have that off and on. So nothing, no safety is jeopardized, but certainly catches people's attention.
Are we gonna move off that subject? Before we do, I'd like to make a comment if I could, because I think it's really important. I know you guys have already heard it, but to recognize what a phenomenal job was done by LFRA, county, US Forest Service, everybody involved. And I could not be any prouder. I can't tell you how many people have taken the time to call me or stop me and say, we are really proud of our firefighters. And they sincerely mean it. I called the chief this morning. One of my neighbors called me and he says, I want to get some money that's going to directly to the firefighters. What can I do? I'd like to tell you, that was the first call I've gotten. I've had a half dozen people that have called me or stopped me and said, I want to do something for firefighters. And that says volumes of how much people, I wish we could have an election today for more money or a district, anything we're trying to accomplish. Because man, it's fresh on people's mind right now. And just yesterday was the last day of a 3-day car show here in town out at the ranch. They had 700 people, a lot of people from the community here and some from out of state. But one of the things they had the privilege to do, they have a firefighters award that they like to give out each year recognizing one of the cars. And normally when I'm introduced, you get kind of a courtesy clap. And it's because they don't know what I do. I mean, everybody, they gave me a rousing applause, not because of who I am. They're doing it for firefighters. And so I asked firefighters in the room to stand up. And there were only 3 or 4. I'm not even sure who they were. They're back of the room and my eyesight's not that good. I wish you could all hear the rousing ovation they got. This community appreciates what you, your staff, the firefighters did. We were prepared. And I think the community knows the value of firefighting. Let's take advantage of it. One of the things I'd like to do too, and I suggest this, Chief, I don't know how we go about it, but maybe start some kind of foundation. There's been talk about it in the past, maybe jointly with the police, that's set up for firefighters specifically. You know, unfortunately, probably a lot of you heard about the police officer who just took his life. Sad. You know, there's gonna be victims there besides himself. There's families involved. Our firefighters are out there. They're seeing the lady's just been killed by the truck that overturned on 34 going up to Estes. There was another fatality here in town. I mean, they're facing this stuff day in and day out. And I know we have Dr. Richards and stuff, but I think there's things we can do to financially help them that the public will jump on. And I've said this for 15 years. I used to say it when I was a policeman back in the dark ages. People love firefighters. Thank you.
Thank you. And I will say this, that before the call was dispatched, I received a text from the chairman saying there was smoke in the canyon. Now, I can't vouch for his whereabouts, but he did show up in my office a few minutes later. And to his credit, we went on the call together, so he was there within the first 7 minutes and truly seen the deployment and the units that come in from all around to support our efforts. So I thought it was a unique opportunity for you. At the same time, it's a pretty interesting process as it builds out, so.
I got a great vantage point where I live. And if I could just say one other thing, I went up on Storm Mountain with the chief a couple of days after the fire died down a little bit, but it was still going and stuff. And it was just remarkable what firefighters had done. And I took a lot of pictures, and you can see where the fire came up within 18 inches, 2 feet of homes and propane tanks and stopped right there. I just can't imagine the people that were out there putting out that fire next to that home, the propane tank. And I just know a lot of it was probably air support and stuff too. But I know it was boots on the ground, because the chief and I saw one cabin that had a back deck. And I guarantee it was a firefighter up there with a saw that cut off the back part of that deck that was on fire to keep that cabin from burning down. I'm probably a pissed off homeowner when they get there not realizing what happened. Somebody stole part of my deck. But they look at the angle and they look at where the scars are at in the ground. I mean, there was a lot of creative thinking on the ground. We got some great people out there.
The guilty party for that deck is actually listening to our call right now. I think that might be Lieutenant Willard, if I recall, got the deck off.
Was that him?
Yes, it was great.
We'll evaluate the cut. If it's a straight cut, we may have a question.
It's just crazy how.
Good job, Greg.
That was super.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's amazing what those guys did up there.
It's amazing how many people, you know, knowing that if you're part of the fire department or associated with them, how many will start a great conversation about the fantastic job that our fire department did accomplish. And it is amazing. It is amazing. If you had your ears open, if you could get recordings of all of that, you would be amazed. And we thank you, each and every one of you, that go out there every day and make a difference in our community. For that, I applaud you. Thanks.
Well, I look at Chief Dan, let's not forget the front end of that work either, because there's a lot of the front end work that set us up for success. I take nothing away from the operational component, but it is a holistic approach. All efforts, all segments of the organization to include support staff. Chief Ward.
A few things on logistics and training and facilities. Logistics, if you remember last year, we had a company that tested our ground ladders and failed a whole bunch of our ground ladders and put us in a real bind of trying to purchase some ladders and quickly repair ladders. And when we went back and looked at the process they used, which is they followed the standards, but probably not to the right way. They inspected the ladder. If they found something wrong with it, they didn't test it. They said it failed and set it aside. When we talked to UL, who certifies the ladders, they said, no, we would still test it. If we see a weld that's cracked, we would identify that and make sure you know that you need to repair that, but we would still test the ladder. And so we hired UL, a little more expensive than the company we were using to do our ladder testing this year, and it paid off well for us. They did a really good job. They found some bent rungs and welds that need to be fixed, but they tested all of the ladders and and give us a much better path forward to take care of our ladders and appropriately get them tested. So we're happy with that. I think Chief may have already covered this, the burn prop and the health center. The burn prop infrastructure, the bid process went out Friday, I think it was, Amy, does that sound right? And the health center should be going out on the 21st, so Thursday is the target, so making some good progress there. Current Station 3, Captain Schutz, the captain at Station 3, and I had met with City Facility Maintenance Director Michael Hogan a few weeks ago, just to talk about what would some of the priorities be for the existing Station 3 if he was able to put a little bit of money in that, get it started, project started this year to hold us over for the next 3 to 5 years. So we talked about a couple of things. We actually had a really ingenious drawing that the crews did of how to divide the dorm room up into individual sleeping rooms, because that's one of the things we've been looking at, and add a second shower and restroom in there. So we were able to provide that to Michael. We talked about some sort of fire detection system in the fire station. We don't have a fire alarm system in that station. It was not required back then, and there's no sprinkler system. And so one of the things with it ties into what Chief was talking about, all that technology on the fire engines. You see them, I wouldn't say frequently, but you see them a few times a year in the publications of a fire truck catching fire in the apparatus bay. And that station with the low ceilings in the apparatus bay, how quickly that bay would fill with the smoke, and the only way out of that dorm room, the only quick way out of that dorm room is into the apparatus bay. There's a nice big window, and Captain Schutz and I were talking about we need to mount a tool probably right there on that wall so they could take that window out if they needed to get out of there. But those were a couple of our priorities is trying to get a second shower, get some individual dorm rooms, and some sort of detection system in there. So the firefighters would have advanced warning if in the middle of the night something happened out in the apparatus bay as far as a fire. So working with him on some of those things to see what he could possibly get done this year. As everybody's probably aware, he said next year he won't be able to do anything because of the budget reduction. So it would have to be some funds he has this year and get a project started. So
There's your fundraiser.
yes,
The community to donate.
Yeah.
But I think that, again, I'm gonna brag on it. I think it speaks volumes. Our people created a drawing to basically utilize current space to meet our current needs. I think that's the crews demonstrating that we're all in. We're all in, we're a team in this, and I compliment them for that. I mean, operating out of a fire station with a mixed workforce with one shower, I think we all would agree is not acceptable. But for them to come up with that alternative plan, I think speaks volumes.
The Type 5 wild land engine for Station 10 that the rural district funded for us. And those of you at the rural board meeting got to hear this the other day. It showed up 12 days shy of 3 years from the time we ordered it. So it came in a couple weeks ago. It's down at the city shops. They're doing some work on it. We got to get the radios installed and lettering and decals and stuff on it, and get some tools and equipment mounted on it. We'll get set with that one. A Type 6 wildland engine replacement, just sharing some of the stuff we're facing with that. It's a Ford F-550, just a big pickup truck. It comes in, Gus from Fleet orders it for us. And then we have a utility box or flatbed that goes on it, and equipment boxes that build this engine. It's a wildland engine, nothing major. We've had the cabin chassis for 1.5 years and haven't been able to get the flatbed in. And we've been trying to get the same flatbed as 3 other engines that we have. So we have a standard, layout and stuff with this engine. And we're to the point where now they're telling us February of next year they could probably start the process of building it. So we're looking at all kinds of different alternatives, which may include the engine we're replacing, taking the flatbed off of it, which is an older style, and reusing it. But we may do that to try and get this truck built in the next 1.5 to 2 months versus waiting all the way till till February to even get it in progress. So that's just some of the weird things that we're facing out there with vehicles and components to vehicles. Gus has got the same issue with utility boxes for water and power and different companies too, different departments he's struggling with.
Keep in mind, sitting on a chassis, the warranty is being compromised every day and sitting in the warehouse. So we lost a year already on the warranty, and it hasn't drove them off.
Yep. And it wouldn't start when they went to go get it the other day to get out.
I was leaving it.
The next part, that box is a program we're working on with Thompson School District. It's a first responder course that started last week. We're doing the first, I think it's 6 weeks or so approximately is fire, and then police department takes over. And then Thompson Valley finishes it out, Thompson Valley EMS, sorry. They're being held at Thompson Valley High School. And it's just an intro to first responders. And we've got, they sold us as there was 19 people signed up for the class. When we showed up last week, there was 9. We lost one, so we were down to 8, but we gained one today when I was over there. So we're still at 9. I think everybody's still trying to figure out, the school's trying to figure out what to do with the firefighters that are there. And the firefighters are trying to figure out what to do when the teacher just leaves them there and stuff. So I talked to the vice principal today, and we're getting some things worked out with it. And I think it's gonna be overall a good program. Today, Gina and Jared had them out showing up bunker gear, and some of them were trying on bunker gear and different things. And tomorrow, I think it is, or Thursday, they do engine company operations. So they're gonna hook an engine to some water or some a hydrant and flow some water and get to do that stuff, and then ladder trucks later in the week. And so it's just gonna take them through the whole gamut of what LFRA does. I think, as I told the rural board, one of the most important classes is when you get down towards the bottom there, and the class that our recruiting team will do, and how to become a firefighter. Because our ultimate goal is we want to recruit some of these students that are coming through high school that don't know exactly what they want to do, or maybe they think they want to be a firefighter. We want to grab onto those people, and if you're going to be a firefighter here in Loveland where you grew up. So that's probably the highlight of the class there. This is really just a start to something bigger. The school district got some funding, $2 million for a class next fall that will be much more formal, and it'll be at their technical education center over on Van Buren, and a lot more structure to the class. And probably our firefighters that teach there will actually be part-time adjunct instructors through the school district versus, right now we're kind of doing a combination of on duty and off duty, and the school district is paying for our overtime and stuff. So it's kind of a hodgepodge right now. That'll be a much more formal class. This is just kind of setting the stage for that. So pretty exciting I think for the students and our firefighters.
And this is a direct result of our participation to the executive leadership team. The former city manager, Steve Adams, had us meeting with the school district every quarter. So one of the breakout sessions we had with the public safety arm was this, and that's how this came about. So as Chief Ward said, it'll eventually lead to a fully funded program. So we're dipping our toes in as a participant, see where it goes.
I think that's awesome. Great.
They had the 9 students that were there last week. When they asked them why they were there, all of them said they had an interest in first responder stuff. There was about half and half police and fire. They had interest in.
It's early, we'll get them.
Yeah. The one that showed up today, that was a new student, it was the only class left, and so that's why he took it.
I would like to,
Yeah.
I'd like to echo the comment. I think the junior colleges get that now. That kids don't necessarily want to go 4 years or would prefer not to. So this is a starting point to get them into the junior college ranks and knows where it goes, but that's a lot of training, just high school and junior college. So I think it's fantastic. There goes your.
Yeah.
You thought I was kidding. I'll be under that, right? We'll be brief on this, but I want to do a quick introduction for Chief Dan and Chief Ward on this. We have had this discussion in regards to our collective relationship with Berthoud Fire Protection District. Chief Charles had brought it to my attention that he was struggling with his prevention services. He uses a contractor who has a less personal touch when it comes to prevention services, inspections, plan reviews, just general interaction with folks that are developing their community. So I asked Chief Ward and Chief Dan to put together a proposal. That is what he's going to give you a synopsis of here. Regarding the proposal for prevention services for Berthoud Fire Protection District.
Okay.
Thanks, Chief. So we put the proposal together. There's a lot of stuff that goes with it. This is just a brief overview, and I won't read every one of those bullet points, but you can see what LFRA CSD would provide to them. So annual inspections are just visiting the businesses once a year, the existing businesses. The development reviews, that's what Ingrid and David do, is they look at all the developments, the buildings and stuff, before they're built to make sure they're safe. And then fire protection plan reviews and permits, those are all I lump those all together. Sorry, Carrie, I break them out. I lump those all together with David and Ingrid. They both do different things, actually. Building permits kind of tied into that. New construction inspections. So as they're building a new building, we've got a couple inspections that we have to do as that process is going on. We figured with the numbers they gave us that we would need somebody 12 to 14 hours a week. I shouldn't say somebody, of our time would be dedicated to Berthoud to do this. So that would be an inspector doing those inspections. It would be Leah who's doing the clerical work, Chief Dan that's going to the monthly or the weekly planning meetings down there, David and Ingrid doing the plan review. So total of all of that 12 to 15 hours of staff time. Our plan would be we would assign a full-time inspector to Berthoud, and they wouldn't be down there all the time. Carrie has our inspectors divided up in, she calls them fire management areas, right? For us firefighters, that's a district. So Station 3's area or a district and Station 5's area. So and inspectors are assigned to those different areas. So they work with those engine crews and stuff. So we basically expand that out to cover Berthoud's district, and one of our inspectors would go down to Berthoud just like it was one of the districts here in Loveland to perform the new construction and existing building annual inspections.
I got it. Don't worry.
Okay. Then Berthoud's obligation to us, where we're at right now, we're still negotiating some of the finer points of this, but a $75,000 annual fee that they would pay to us. We would retain the fees that Berthoud charges for all the plan reviews, the building permits, which is approximately $30,000. Last year, we know that could go up and down based on development. The vehicle, we gotta have a vehicle for an inspector. They would take care of the legal fees for all the contracts and IGAs and stuff we have going on. One time, $10,000 fee for equipment, uniforms and stuff. So computers, we want to make sure that inspector that's down there has a uniform on that reflects both LFRA and Berthoud, because we need to know that they're working for Berthoud, but they're also, they actually are employed by us. So we've got some one-time equipment fees and stuff that Berthoud would cover. Ultimately, what LFRA would do is hire a part-time inspector 20 hours a week. And that inspector would pick up the slack in annual inspections here in Loveland, while basically covering for that inspector that's down spending that time in Berthoud. We would gain somewhere between 6 to 8 hours a week from that position if we're figuring 12 to 14 hours of staff time dedicated to Berthoud. So basically, we would be gaining that 6 to 8 hours of staff time with that part-time inspector. We're also, everything we figured out as far as plan reviews for the average size building, the number of hours, inspections, all that, we figured that at the highest pay rate on our scale. So we have some buffer there that LFRA is gaining from that as well. So I think we're doing well. It's a great place for us to start. Berthoud has because they're a district, they said they have to look at this every year going forward. So I think we're really comfortable with let's jump into this and try it. I think we could do a much better job than the service that they're getting now. Provide them a quicker service in a lot of things they're doing and provide better information back to the fire district. Because right now, the company that's doing it in the fire district sounds like there's a big disconnect in really getting the information to them. And the fire district doesn't exactly know what's going on all the time with the service that's being provided out there. So I think we can do a really good job with that. Now, I want to ask Carrie if she has anything she wants to add before I answer any questions. Carrie's done a lot of work on this.
So to that, and thank you, Carrie and Chief Ward both for your efforts. Why would we do this? I think this is important that I share this. Number one, it creates consistency from district to district, takes out political lines and allows us to have consistency and plan reviews and inspections across the board. They are our neighbors that we work seamlessly with. This is also a demonstration of what consolidation steps look like. To take it beyond just a financial discussion, these are the kind of things that are afforded a fire protection district that aren't always consistent with the current governance model. I'm not saying we couldn't do it with a current governance model. It's just administratively a little more constraining. This is the first step to provide a higher level of service for our neighbors that we run with consistently. And ultimately, we also put a succession plan in place. What we've talked about, Chief Dan, while she plans on staying an additional 10 years, we want to be prepared. And this allows us to put somebody in the pipeline to be trained with her oversight and supervision while looking at another community. It does not compromise our staff. We evaluated that to make sure it's not putting undue stress on them and the workload's not overwhelming. So
I think it's going to raise the level of all of Carrie's staff and not particularly one person necessarily in the pipeline. But to get to work with different entities that you're not used to working with, the town of Berthoud just goes into Boulder County and into Weld County. And so those are different experiences and different political environments that as we rotate inspectors down there, they'll get that chance to grow, I think, and then Ingrid and David with working with those different planning divisions, chances to grow and develop that are different than the experiences they're getting now.
Do we know how fast Berthoud is growing in relation to us?
it's
Is it outpacing us?
No, it's a much slower pace, but that's what we've talked about is the bubble's gonna burst at some point. When you have a truck stop down there and you have a fully developed I-25, I think it's ready and prepared. The question is how they do it from city government town government perspective, as far as welcoming growth. Okay.
All right, Ford has a question for you, and this might be for Andrea too. When we hire or we contract a person to go to our fire academy, are they paid while they're in the fire academy?
Yes.
I just was curious how that worked.
From day one.
From day one, very good,
Start getting paid today.
very good. And they're covered with medical insurance as well from the get-go. That's awesome.
You're a little old to join now.
I don't know. Get enough black hair dye, I might sneak in, John.
We do pay them, their step one right away. Some departments would pay like a academy rate.
Okay. Right from the get-go. That's very cool. Thank you.
All right, Chief Smith.
A couple training things. This was active assailant training down at Campion Academy. Thompson Valley EMS, Berthoud Fire and our crews went through basically moving patients, treating patients, getting patients ready to be transported in a situation where the police department goes into an active assailant type operation, clears areas and makes it safe for us or safe as possible for our crews to go in and bring the victims out and get them transported as quick as possible. Community night out. One photo from there. Chief, you actually said you're the photographer on this, but
Yeah, you can notice how well it's centered and the light is all.
Councilor Olson's neighborhood, it looks like.
I made sure I focused.
A lot of people, that's great.
And this is a couple photos January sent me of just different events from July and early August that our crews went to. I'm not even sure what the events were, but the clown with the firefighters, and then it's always good the little kiddo with the firefighter, great photos.
Okay, we're playing catch up from July, so there's quite a few.
That's good.
Yeah.
This first one was a structure fire actually in Bertha. It's about maybe a half mile south of our district boundary. A pretty significant basement fire, but obviously got it taken care of. One on Florida Drive up in our district, outside fire that went through the eaves. A few of these were kind of that same story. We did have a firefighter injury on both the previous one and this one as well, but nothing too significant.
I'll bet that welcome sign had a lot of meaning that day.
Right? Lock mount, this was a fan, bathroom fan that started on fire. Luckily, it wasn't a giant attic space, so it didn't get too far advanced, so they were able to get control of that one. Another call that was down in Berthoud, our Rescue 42 and Engine 42 crew went down there to help them with a horse. Some air curtain burner operations that we were doing, trying to bounce from different places up on top of storm, and we actually burned on our Station 9 property to help get rid of some defensible space slash that we had. We completed that. That's the mitigation crew that's there. Then we sent 3 to Oregon on one of our first national deployments that we've done in quite some time. I think it's been at least 4 years since we've sent anybody out. So D. Decker Smith and Bird, I'm getting that name right. One of our seasonals got to go out to Oregon for 2 weeks.
And that's fully reimbursable. The other side of this is how the system works, where they reciprocate the favor to us. While we're going to Oregon, if our incident would have escalated to a Cameron Peak, that's how the process works. Favor for a favor.
And then kind of the precursor to what we were dealing with, there was a fire that popped up on near Soulshine Road, with better access off of Pole Hill Road, kind of between us and Estes. Our modules up there helping the county module with trying to get this fire taken care of. On 17th Street, kitchen fire that we had. And West First Street, early in the morning, there was like an outside in view, I think is what we heard the story was. And then a couple great pictures, I thought. Day one, you can kind of see the smoke on the mountain, and then someone grabbed a really nice shot of Station 8 with an evening fire. And then during the fire, Estes thought they have a structure fire of their own, which sounded a little bit entertaining. We thought there was a firefighter that wasn't. Turned out okay, but a lot of resources went up there to help them with that to make sure we wouldn't have any more wildland fires.
The entertaining part, just for clarity, is the individual called for an emergency had fallen in a hole. And the incident commander was looking at the individual. He fell in a hole, but it wasn't in the structure, it was in the yard. So it was entertaining in the fact that it sounded like he was trapped, but he was in a hole. He's like, when you get out, let me know. So,
He couldn't get out.
yeah.
And then late in our fire up on Alexander Mountain, we actually had one of our, not our, but one of the firefighters on the fire slip on the mountain that couldn't walk, so we had to help him down. Turned into it. Yeah, it was a pretty significant rope event. Took about 3 hours, I think. Then we had an actual dive call at Carter Lake. That we found the individual, it just was not successful. And the RV, what's the name of the RV place? Lazy Days, near Johnson's Corner, had an RV on fire inside the building, and that's technically up Front Ranges district, and they called for a second alarm. We got resources there too.
You mentioned the term module twice. I don't know what it was the first time, and
So those are our seasonal firefighters. We call them a module or module. Is their actual call sign on the radio.
Okay.
But our 4 seasonals and our full-time person, we call them the body.
Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry for that.
I do have, I'll wait, that's our report, so.
Well, I'm ready for additional business, so go ahead.
So there was a question, Lieutenant Willard had asked, if not already on the agenda, statewide initiatives 50 and 108 are predicted to have significant negative effects on jurisdiction. They rely on property taxes for their income. Colorado State Chiefs and Colorado professional firefighters are opposing both. Would the LFRA board consider drafting a resolution to oppose these measures? I would say the governor has taken care of that for us. And Advanced Colorado has pulled back both of those initiatives. And Emily, if I'm speaking wrong, please correct me, but initiative 50 was to put a 5% cap on property tax increases for special districts. And then proposition 108, I don't think is that the correct number, Emily? 108?
Yeah, it's initiative 108, but that's the correct number.
That was another restricting factor that was going to change the assessed values or the assessment rates. Both of those have been pulled back by Advanced Colorado during this special session.
Well,
Correct?
we
Almost.
believe that they will be. So the governor has called a special session. The special session will occur starting on Monday through Wednesday of next week. The intent of the legislative special session is to have the state legislature pass additional property tax rollbacks or decreases in exchange for a commitment from the proponents of initiatives 50 and 108 that they'll remove it from the ballot. There are a lot of open questions still. For example, how do you bind somebody to that promise? Another part of this promise is that he won't bring another initiative back for at least 10 years. That's not enforceable under any legal means known. So, and the decision to call the special session was itself controversial. So right now we're all just kind of holding our breath and seeing what happens next week. But we could be in a very, very different place with respect to property taxes. What day is it today? Tuesday? About this time next week than we are today. Regardless, there is no outcome from the special legislative session that improves the property tax position of Colorado's local governments. It will either remain unchanged and we will take our chances in November, or it will be made worse.
Continue to monitor it and the saga. Emily, anything else?
No, that's really I'm getting dozens and dozens of, not dozens and dozens, but dozens of emails a day just on 50 and 108. So we're watching it very, very closely. I had a call with SDA today, and we will just keep everybody informed once we know more.
So the question was asked if we would put a letter together.
Yeah, so there's
lot.
a template resolution opposing initiatives 50 and 108 that has been prepared by the Colorado State Fire Chiefs. You certainly can also prepare your own resolution, but they try to do the heavy lifting and for the Colorado's Fire Service. Many districts already passed that before the announcement of the special legislative session, which is fine, but it may be moot if these two initiatives get pulled off the ballot. So my recommendation would be to wait until your September meeting, because they might be gone by next week. If they're not gone by next week, then we can prepare a resolution for the board to consider in September.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
If I might, Emily, if we were to pass such a resolution, doesn't that just give a little bit more ammunition to getting rid of these? I mean, you're giving the governor or whomever additional support. Not that it matters from a small area like ours, but you're giving them additional support saying, yeah, this is a bad idea, that he can bring forth to the people in the legislation
In the legislature.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that is, I don't think you're wrong. I think with the number of local governments that have come out to say we oppose these measures, one interpretation of that is we should do everything we can to get them off the ballot. At the same time, my understanding is that these measures are polling very poorly. And while the fire service writ large, I'm not speaking for any particular fire department, but the fire service writ large is sort of wanting to take the position that we'd rather go to election in November and see these things defeated than to be negotiating against ourselves at the legislature, because this would now be the third legislative session in less than 2 years where we're lowering our own property taxes. There's also concern that the proponent who's really behind these measures is creating a new strategy for passing policy in Colorado. For example, if you don't like what the legislature is doing, you threaten to bring a very draconian ballot measure, and then you basically blackmail them into changing their policy, so you'll remove your ballot measure. So what kind of precedent are we setting? So it's not pretty right now. There doesn't seem to be really any good solution or any good option. I don't think that I don't think there's a right or wrong in passing a resolution of opposition. I think each agency just makes the decision for itself whether it wants to. But there's not a right decision or a wrong decision in that.
John, further thoughts?
I guess what I'm leaning to is not passing the resolution, because I'm sure there's enough of those going on right now. Yeah, I don't know who asked the question, but I just want to make sure it got discussed.
Yeah. So I don't know if Lieutenant Willard's back. He was going on a call, so I'll make sure we bring it to his attention.
Mayor, you
No.
thoughts? Rod?
On that particular topic?
Yeah.
No, I'm good.
Okay. All right, wait and see, I guess.
Wait and
So,
see. We'll keep you
Thanks for the
informed.
information. We'll
Standing,
monitor it.
Mhm.
standing by.
Okay. All right, anything else that anybody wants to bring forward to the board?
I would, sorry.
No, please, go ahead. Rod, you had your hand up first, go ahead.
So a couple things. I just want to say, we had a couple city-owned assets in the fire area. One was Vistine Smith Mountain Park. The other was our water treatment plant. I was able to get up and take tours of both. The fire was over the other ridge from our water treatment plant. Now, our water treatment plant is gonna deal with water quality in the river as we get runoff, but we have experience with that, as we've done before. The other one was Vistine Smith Mountain Park, and I was up there and Chair Swanty, to your point about coming to the edge of the path, we have the historic cabin up there, and that's exactly what happened. Right to the gravel path to the north is where it was at.
That's when the volunteers work out of?
Exactly, yeah.
That's a great cabin.
Yeah, and it was just right there, and then farther to the south and the east, it was, burnt and all that kind of stuff, but the rest of the structures were intact. That's one tough park. With a flood and then now this from that standpoint, but just wanted to point that out that those assets were able to be saved from that standpoint. And so appreciate that.
Inject one thing there. That speaks to the advantage of LFRA being part of this. The first day, I was pulled in as far as prioritization. And the water treatment plant was priority one. Now, obviously, it went the opposite direction, but if we're not at that table, I'm not saying the others couldn't prioritize that, but we were able to inject that as the top priority. Not for the property at risk, but more importantly, the downstream effects.
Literally.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Mr. Chair, I do have one more thing. I want to speak to the topic that you brought up at the last during the July 3rd meeting and in the budget meeting that we had. And I reviewed the video several times. Appreciated you sharing your thoughts. But I want to say this in just a short response is it was not my intent to make you feel embarrassed. or the feelings that you expressed. And I want to say, please accept my apologies. I too value our relationship over the years that we've had. And I concur with the need to continue, the topics of, words that were said were unity, respect, collaboration, and even, a recommitment to communication, because it seems to me is what in the instant we didn't communicate the way we should have. And from that standpoint, and I also want to say that Chief Sindelbach and I continue to work together and communicate regularly on LFRA and city issues. And we work on items that are mutually beneficial for LFRA, the district. The most recent one is we dealt with water rights out at the fire training grounds where the plan developments that are out there. And we cooperated to do with that particular piece and many others. So Mr. Chair, just wanted to express that and my apologies.
Apologies, Kevin. Thank you for your comments. I appreciate it. It's been great working with you for many years, so it's good to hear. Now, Paul?
Yes, and continuing with Rod's theme of partnership, we had our rural meeting last week. We discussed sort of what transpired in the city council meeting. And the fact that, the city's going through some really tough financial issues that they're struggling with, and no doubt they'll figure out how to make it all work. But the one thing that we wanted to do is make sure that, that the rural is still on board completely with the district. The name is not premature. We need that as a marketing piece as we move forward. But the one thing we wanted to do is stress that we can put the financial piece on hold, if you will, while you solve things until November, right? We still want to have conversations with Brian and with yourself and others to make sure that we have some metrics or some mathematical functions that we can work with, but we're not going to push to get an answer until you kind of sort things out in November, because that did change the game completely, right, with the 1%. So we want to make sure that you hear that from the rural board. This isn't me, this is our entire board speaking, that we want to let you know you're not under any pressure for that. We still want to push full force to get a district done, but the financial piece, as you figure it out, we understand that there's some issues, they're big issues you guys have faced. So just want to let you know we'd like to give you some breathing room as a partner to allow you to do that. And if I didn't state that correctly, in my opinion, please join it, Jeff.
No, you said it perfect. We want to continue from a rural perspective, to be a good partner. I guess one had to offer, and this is Jeff speaking, but I think probably the board feels the whole way. No matter how we end this, whether we're authority, whether we're a district, whether we go back the old way, it takes X number of dollars to operate the fire authority. And the city shares 80%, ours is 20%. You guys need to figure out as a city how you're gonna come up with your 80%. It doesn't have to all come from property taxes, doesn't matter to us, but it takes X number of dollars to run the fire district. Figure out a way to get it. We're here to be your partner. We've had a great partnership. Let's keep it going.
Thank you.
Okay, board members, any other comments, any other business? Rod, thank you again. All right, everybody. I'm gonna be out of town for the next 10 days. I don't think it's gonna impact anybody's life, but going to Arizona in August.
Facebook will have to do that.
Going to Arizona in August, that's where everybody goes on vacation. That's where you're going. Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
You're serious?
Well, the other side of the story is we're going to the Sitgraves National Forest, which is pretty high, and it rains every night at 5. It's like Camelot. So anyway, thank you, everybody. Great meeting. See you later.
Motion for adjournment.